It's Tottenham versus Chelsea on Saturday at London Derby. I'm delighted to be joined by Theo for this combined 11 video, a new series to the channel. Theo, how you doing? And tell people a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Harry. Thanks for having me on as well. Really appreciate the invite. I'm Theo. You can find me on Twitter with my Twitter handle, Sesky Time. I'm a co-host at From the Shed End podcast. You might have seen a few of our YouTube videos or seen us around on Twitter. Diehard Chelsea fan. I was born in the Chelsea Westminster Hospital, and I live just 5 minutes away from Stamford Bridge, so it was always going to be Chelsea as my team. Season ticket holder as well at Stamford Bridge, so I go to all the games. Gutted to have missed out on a ticket for tomorrow's game in North London, but I'll definitely be watching from home. But yeah, if anyone wants to kind of like collaborate with me or kind of drop me a message for any kind of like upcoming videos you want to do, just like I said, you can find me on Twitter at Sesky Time, and if you want to look us up on Instagram, we're From the Shed End on Instagram as well.
Oh, fantastic stuff. Thank you very much for joining me today. Should be a good one if people don't know how it works. So we've split into two, so it's fair. It's, the first part's going to be about including injured players. So like for Tottenham, Maddison, Solanke, Romero, all these players out. Same for Chelsea as well. We've also got a few injuries. And then we're going to do more relevant, I'd argue, more kind of factual, where we consider players that are injured and we don't pick them. So there you go, balances out. Theo, before we get going, can I ask you, I was joined by a Chelsea podcaster yesterday, and he said he doesn't see Tottenham as a rival. What do you make of that? That took me by surprise.
Had you asked me that last season or the season before, I'd definitely agreed. But I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit afraid of Tottenham this season, especially under Thomas Frank. I just think he's a proper good manager. I think probably you really hit the nail on the head with that appointment, because you've always gone for these big names like Jose Mourinho before. Then you went for Ange Postecoglou, next big thing out of the Scottish Premier League. But this season, I just feel like, especially that first game he had against PSG in the Super Cup, I think it really set the tone for the season and what Tottenham can produce. I think both teams won't be challenging for the title, if I'm completely honest. But I definitely think both teams will be knocking about top four come the end of the season.
Totally agree with you. Thank you for share your thoughts on that one. But if people are listening by audio podcast platform, don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review. By all means, let us know as well where you're listening from. Same if you're listening on YouTube. If you are there, though, please do like and subscribe if you are new. But let's get straight into it. Theo, I'm going to start with you and bring up your team, which includes injured players. We've all gone with a 4-3-3 formation to make it fair. Would you like to explain your thinking and what you've decided?
Yeah, more than happy. Both, like you correctly pointed out, both teams have a fair amount of injuries this season. So this lineup includes both Tottenham and Chelsea injuries. So I've gone with Vicario in goal. I'm going to read it out from 1 to 11. So Vicario is my goalkeeper. Then my back four is Reece James, Levi Colwill, Van de Ven, and Cucurella as my left back. My midfield three, and you could maybe have Maddison as the 10, but it's James Maddison, Moises Caicedo, and Joao Palhinha. And then my front three is Cole Palmer, Pedro Neto, and Mohamed Kudus. I've cheated a bit. I've had either like Palmer as Neto as my false nine. I'll explain my thoughts about that afterwards. But a bit more about my thought process. Goalkeeper Vicario. If I'm completely honest, I think there's such a big gap between City, Arsenal, and Liverpool in terms of their goalkeepers, and then Chelsea and Tottenham. I mean, Chelsea, I do like Robert Sanchez. I feel like he gets a lot of hate from Chelsea fans or football fans in general, and he has massively improved this season, in particular that Club World Cup performance in the final. But I still think Vicario, maybe because it's fresh in my mind, that performance against Monaco in that 0-0 draw where he was absolutely fantastic. And I think he's definitely improved this season compared to last as well. And I think just currently right now, who I'd rather in the net would be Vicario, in my opinion. Reece James, I think this is last season was the season he played the most football since probably Tuchel's first season in 2021. So I think now that he's finally showed that he can stay fit, he's actually proving to be a world-class right back like he was under Tuchel. And I think he's really making that right flank his, back in the England fold as well. And we just know, I think both as England fans, that when Reece James is fit, for me, he's one of the best. He is the best right back in the world and should be starting ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold at the World Cup. Centre backs, Levi Colwill. I did hesitate between Colwill and Romero for my second centre back, but I went for Colwill just because I think he might be like along Reece James, that next kind of England captain or vice captain. Really unfortunate to miss out the season with an injury that he sustained in training over pre-season. But I think he's one of those players that now that we don't have him in the team, we actually realise how valuable he is to us, because we have looked very shaky defensively with Tosin, Chalobah, and Fofana at times. His centre-back partner is Van der Ven. And what can you say about this guy? He's just probably one of the most informed centre-backs at the moment. You watched the game against Everton, those 2 goals, the game against PSG as well, the 2 goals he scored in that game. I think for me, what just stuns me is his pace. Like as a centre-back, you just don't get that pace from many players, and he's been absolutely fantastic. And I think now that Tottenham are kind of trying to do what Chelsea do under Thomas Frank, more build out of the back and play with possession, you just feel like a lot of the kind of the passages of play come through him as well. So yeah, one of those players that I hate to say, but really jealous that he plays for Tottenham and not for my team as well. And then my left back, Cucurella. For me, again, one of the most informed left backs at the moment, or inverted fullbacks with this new position, if you want to call it that. So when Chelsea have possession, he drops into midfield and then he slots back into left back when we're defending. I think since that Euro 2024, he's been the most informed left back. He had a really difficult first season. I think there was a lot of going on behind the scenes in his private life as well, but he's really, really improved now. And he's, again, when we played midweek against Wolves in the Cup, we had Hato at left back. Brilliant young Dutch left back, but he's no Cucurella. He's really no Cucurella. So I think Cucurella is absolutely fantastic and probably my best left back in the entire league at the moment as well. Midfield 3, Caicedo and Palhinha. I love that partnership. Like if I could be Chelsea's midfield partnership, I'd be so happy. Caicedo, what a player. What a player. I mean, the fact we're not even talking about his price tag anymore is absolutely fantastic. And you might have seen a lot of Chelsea debates that he's, these loan keep and sell between him, N'Golo Kante, and Claude Makelele. And the fact he's even been put in the same bracket as those other 2 midfielders says a lot about Moises Caicedo and how good he's been for us. And this season, he's really added goals to his game as well. I mean, the long-range goal against Liverpool, against Brentford, absolutely fantastic player. He just covers so much ground, almost like he's got a third lung at times, given how much he runs. And similar to kind of Colwill, when he doesn't play, you really feel that void in midfield. And Palhinha, my God, this guy, when he was at Fulham, I just was desperate for us to sign him. I think he had the most tackles in the Premier League. Fantastic player. And just Portugal are spoiled for choice in midfield. They got him, Vitinha, and they've got João Neves as well. So what a kind of midfield trio.
Wow, what a midfield.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, I mean, I think he was kind of unlucky when he got signed by Bayern Munich because he was competing with Pavlovic and Kimmich. And I just didn't really feel like his game really suited Bayern Munich and Vincent Kompany and how they wanted to play. But under Tottenham, I think he's been your best player this season, probably alongside Kudos, and he's contributed with goals at really important times, like against City. So yeah, fantastic player, and one of those guys that even when he was at Fulham, I was desperate for us to sign. I've gone with Maddison as my 10 or my kind of second or third midfielder. I really like Maddison. I feel like sometimes he divides opinion, not really regularly kind of in the England kind of fold, but I think he's a fantastic midfielder and type of player. I just really hope from an England perspective and a football perspective, he really recovers from his injury and gets back to his best as well, because probably your most creative player when he does play as well, from set pieces and just in general, having him and Kudos in the same team. If Thomas Frank can kind of include the 2 of those players, it's going to be a really dangerous kind of threat for Tottenham. Then front 3, cheated again a bit here because I've got Neto as my false 9, so I just didn't feel like Richarlison, Kolo Muani, Joao Pedro, Liam Delap, Mark Gui just did enough for me, or Solanke to be my number 9. So I've gone with Neto. I just think this guy's so underrated. I think a lot of football fans nowadays, they look at like goals and assists, but what he does off the ball, how he contributes, even like as a Chelsea fan, I go to all the games and I see just his work rate off the ball, 80th minute, and he's still sprinting up and down the pitch to put pressure on players. Really, really good player. And again, I think Portugal are very lucky to have him at the World Cup next year as well. And then my 2 wingers, Kudos and Palmer. I think Tottenham fans know quite a bit about him after his performance at the Tottenham Stadium last year, and Chelsea fans are really, really missing him this year. One of those guys that just makes it look so easy when he's on the ball. Look at that Club World Cup final performance. He just almost passes the ball in the net against a world-class defense and against Gianluigi Donnarumma. So yeah, fantastic player. And again, I think a lot of football fans and England fans were desperate for him to start the Euros. And when he did start, he performed. And Kudos, what a player as well. What a pickup from Tottenham this season. And I think what a loss for West Ham. Fantastic player. I think there was one game where you didn't have him on the pitch and you really felt that he wasn't there and you really missed him. So yeah, he's been a fantastic signing for Tottenham alongside Joao Palhinha this season. So yeah, that's my combined 11, including injured players. So I'll just go over the injured ones I've picked. I think it's Colwill, Maddison, and that's it. Actually, just Colwill and Maddison amongst my. Oh, and Palmer. Sorry, and Cole Palmer. I'm really keen to see yours now.
Yeah, exactly. Theo, firstly, thank you very much. I think you've been extremely balanced and fair, if I'm honest with you. You've gone with 6 Chelsea players and 5 Tottenham players. I think that's completely fair. I had the other day we had a Newcastle one, I think it was 8 or 9 Newcastle players. I mean, the fact that there's no like recognised like proper traditional striker, if you're at number 9, tells you the story you need to know.
Mm.
You know, both teams are struggling, aren't they, for that kind of poacher. But I think you can get away with it. If I don't have my team, I've done very similar. There's only a couple of things I do want to challenge you on,
Yeah.
if that's okay. And not challenge, but like find a little bit more. You mentioned with centre backs in terms of Colwill, who I really like, by the way. And I think you've got some really good defenders, which we'll get onto in a little bit. But I think Colwill's one of those where you look at, you just go, Mr. Consistent. I think he's fantastic. How close, because you said that Romero you did consider. How close was it that Romero got in there for you? I totally agree with like Van der Ven being there out of the two, but was Romero close or not really close?
Yeah, it was extremely close, extremely close. Maybe it's just a bit of my Chelsea bias wanting to pick Colwill over Romero, and maybe it's still fresh in my head how he can be a bit of a hothead. I feel Romero. I do feel like he's kind of cleared up his image and he's much more disciplined now. But still in the back of my head, that performance where he got a red card, I think a 2-footed challenge on Enzo Fernandez, and kind of went downhill for Tottenham in that game after that. But yeah, he's really improved, fantastic player. And I think if you got him and Van der Ven fit, that should be your starting centre-back partnership ahead of Danso and potentially some other centre backs you've got as well, and Dragusin as well.
Okay, thank you. And the other one is actually, believe it or not, you'd be surprised, but it's a Chelsea player. And I really like your midfield, by the way. Casado, Paulinho, Maddison, I think it's fantastic. But Enzo Fernandez, I think he's class as well. How close is he to being considered?
Yeah, again, really, really wanted to include Enzo. I just felt like maybe it would be a bit too biased to have another Chelsea player in there. And I feel what he's really done this season is when Palmer hasn't played, he's played a bit more up that pitch. He's been a bit more offensive. We've had, Caicedo and Lavia, Caicedo and Andre Santos, and occasionally we've had Enzo Fernandez at 10. And he does this thing really well where he just kind of like just darts into the box last second and comes up with a goal. We saw it against Brighton. We saw it back end of last season against Liverpool. I don't want to make that comparison because it's a big, big kind of name to kind of mention, but it reminds me a bit of Frank Lampard, how just last minute he just used to dart into the box and come up with a goal. And this season he's really kind of contributed with goals, and he kind of has a bit more of that leadership aspect to his game as well, which maybe we were seeing early on in his Chelsea career.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. I mean, Lavia as well. I mean, you'll be able to know more than I do, but what a player he is, right? I think
What a player, yeah. Just a shame that he's never fully fit, I feel. I don't think we've really seen the best of Lavia yet, given that his injury record.
Yeah, hopefully for your sake anyway, he can stay fit. But we'll move on now to my team, again, including injured players. So I'll talk you through it first and then explain my thinking. It's not too different. So Vicario in goal, backline of Reece James, Cucurella as a fullbacks, then Romero and Van der Ven as the centre backs. A goal in the midfield, which is again close. Casado and Paulinho I agree with. I've gone with Kulusevski in midfield. Then Kudus, Palmer, and Neto up top. So correct me if I'm wrong, but there's 2 differences in here. I think I've gone with Romero and Kulusevski instead of Colwill and Maddison. I think those are the 2
Yeah,
changes.
that's
So
the
is that
only
right?
2 changes. Only 2 changes.
Yeah.
So very, very similar in our thinking process. Yeah.
Exactly. So you by all means challenge me in a little bit. I'll explain my thoughts now. So Vicario, firstly, I think I'm going to say it's simple. I totally agree with you that in terms of goalkeepers, Spurs and Chelsea, I think they have 2 decent goalkeepers, but decent, you only need maybe better than that in the Premier League. And as you said, City definitely now with Donnarumma. Liverpool 100% with Alisson, Arsenal with Raya, they just are another level, unfortunately. So you're right, they're what I'd call class, world class. So, but for me, Vicario just about edges it. I always feel like Robert Sanchez. I think he's a good goalkeeper, but you just feel like there's a mistake in there somewhere waiting to happen. In particular, when the ball's at his feet, I could be wrong about that. Then the fullbacks for me, I think Tottenham have 2 good fullbacks. Well, we have 3, but 2 are currently fit. I know this is including injured players, but you've got Porro and Spence. For me, would be to considered. I like a doggy, but hasn't been involved enough for me to be considered. But I think at the same time, Cucurella, I totally agree. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, left back right now in the Premier League. And we're talking about someone that's really good going forward and really good defensively. And James, although he's suffered his injury problems, when he's fit, someone, as you said, that can step into midfield and extremely versatile. For me, the centre backs, I'm confident in, but I don't think Will's a million miles away, to be honest with you. I really don't. And we talk about Ajapong, for example. I think in the future, he can definitely be getting into the team. So Chelsea, although they've suffered a lot of injury problems at centre back, if we forgot about the injuries, they have a lot of centre backs to choose from, and you've got to consider all of them because there's a lot of them. There's a couple definitely that got close. Midfield, then I'm definitely confident about Casado and Paulinho. For me, they're probably the first two in the team, actually, the way they've been this season in particular, but the type of profile of player they are as well. Casado has everything, especially going forward this year. I mean, how good has he been offensively? And Paulinho, how good has he been defensively with these tackles again? But for me, I've gone with Kulusevski because last season he got injured about the halfway point, and for me he was our best player until we got injured, up until I think it was around the Christmas break, maybe just after. I thought he was incredible, I really do. So I think when he's at his best and he can keep fit, he's a player that can play right wing or in midfield, which is great. But hasn't been seen him for a long while, and Maddison's a very good shout as well. But I just think Kulusevski's maybe a tiny bit more consistent. I've gone with the same front three as you: Kudus, Palmer, and Neto. I think they're all fantastic in their own way. I've come with a slightly different position. I've had Neto on the left. I thought about that partnership with Cucurella overlapping on the side. And I've gone with Kudus on the right, where I think he's better. And I've got Palmer down the middle as a false nine, which of course I know doesn't suit him, but just a case of getting all three of those players in. But yeah, I don't really need to explain it too much. Palmer, when he's fit, is fantastic. Even if he takes dips in form, he's still you don't give him room as a defender. You just know what he is capable of, and just get the feeling he needs one goal or one moment, and he'll take that and really kick on from that. Kudus has been excellent this season. Neto as well. I mean, I think he initially started slow maybe when he joined from Wolves. There's no doubt it was a big signing. And I think my club Tottenham were rumoured out at least for him. And, maybe in one position, in pole position. So that was a shame in our case to see Chelsea go and nick him. We knew we got a great player. I'd still love him at the club now because we really lack a left winger. We didn't replace Son. So criminal. But that is my team. Anything, Theo, that you maybe disagree with or you want to raise?
No, I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I know that we played Neto more as a false nine back end of last season. We had a lot of injuries over Palmer, but like you said, it's just a case of maybe having them in their natural positions and squeezing in Palmer as well. I trust you maybe as a Tottenham fan to maybe, fight for Kulusevski over Maddison. I mean, they're both your players, so maybe I trust your opinion there. And like I said, Romero and Colwell for me was almost like a toss of a coin. And I do like Romero, similar to kind of Enzo Fernandez for me. He's got that kind of Latin American fire in him, that passion as well, that really kind of makes him kind of stand out in the Premier League. And like I also said, Romero and Van der Ven, that's going to be a really big centre-back partnership for you if both of those players can stay fit.
Absolutely huge. No, thank you very much. I think we're close to agreement, to be honest with you, on all of that, which is often rare when it comes to London rivals. So we take that. But Theo, this is your team now, not including injured players, which is the dilemma that both Thomas Frank and Enzo Maresca currently face. Again, all of this is 4-3-3, but would you like to talk people through this one?
Yeah, so I'll read it out from keeper to strikers. So I've got Vicario again in goal. He's fit, so same reasons I said before. My back line is Reece James, the right back, with Cucurella as the left back. Once again, seeing both those Chelsea fullbacks are fit. I've got Van der Ven again as one of my centre backs, and this is where it changes before because obviously Colwell was injured. We had Romero, I think, is a doubt for tomorrow potentially. So I've gone with Tosin. It's a bit of a controversial one. I'll explain afterwards why. Midfield of three, I've got João Palhinha, Caicedo, who I mentioned before, and I've also gone with Esteval Willian, our new Brazilian wonder kid. And then my front three, I've gone with Kudus, Neto, and João Pedro as the striker. So I'll explain the ones that are kind of new additions, given that we're not allowed to include injuries in this 11. So I mentioned Tosin to partner Van der Ven in my non-injured combined 11. I feel like something we've really seen under the new Chelsea ownership is a lack of experience, a lack of maybe more mature players over the age of maybe 25, 26. Might be wrong, but I think Tosin's 27. And it sounds crazy to say that Tosin's one of our most experienced players and oldest players at 27. And a lot of the younger players kind of call him Uncle Tosin. So they do see a bit of a role model, a bit of a experienced player there. And again, I feel like we do type of player that when I want to kind of defend the lead late on in the game, I do like to see Tosin. I know maybe it's still fresh in my mind, that kind of mistake for the Sunderland goal quite late on last Saturday where him and Chalobah look like the Chuckle brothers in a way. But no, I do really like Tosin. I think based on current form, I'd have him over Chalobah, Fofana and Badiashile, actually, who's injured. I do really like Ashampong. He also came into my thought process, but I just feel like he's more maybe a natural right back than a right centre back. But when he has played at right centre back, he's looked very comfortable, to give him his credit. Esteval Willian as my new midfield addition. So I was in Brazil in April, and I visited Sao Paulo, and I went to the Palmeiras Stadium, and I was asking a few people on the tour, a few Brazilian locals, like, what do you make of Estevão Willian? He's about to sign for Chelsea this summer, and they told me, like, this guy's good. This guy's very, very good, but be careful. Like, don't expect things from him too quickly, because he's still only 18. I think he was 17 at the time. It might take him some time to adapt to the Premier League, to life in London, to the weather. But I think, given how young he is, given he's coming from a new culture, a new country, he's really hit the ground running. I think he scored in his preseason debut in a friendly against Leverkusen and was at Stamford Bridge for that. He's gotten more minutes in the Champions League and maybe the Cup than the Premier League. But a late winner against Liverpool was a moment that was quite special for him and for Chelsea fans as well. And just to put this in context, how much hype and excitement there is around this Estevão Willian, he got a Nike contract at the age of 10. So Nike sponsored him when he was 10 years old back in Brazil. So I really hope he doesn't really go down that same route as Neymar, and maybe where he lets kind of his personal life take over from his football. But from what I've understood, he's very family oriented. He's very committed to football. He doesn't drink any alcohol as well. So I really hope he just focuses on his football and doesn't maybe let the London life distract him as well. And then I've gone with João Pedro as my striker. I did hesitate here because I did want to put Liam Delap, but that red card for me maybe against Wolves just shows the lack of discipline with Liam Delap. And João Pedro, I know he's dipped in form slightly, but that July, August, September period, Club World Cup, start of the season, he just proved to me that he can play that number 9 role. He can come up with goals from headers, from long range, from just being clinical in the box. I do think he's better positions than 10 playing with a striker, which is what we saw at times with Liam Delap early on in the season. But I think there's an exciting player there, and we saw it against United as well. When we went down to 10 men, he just looked so isolated, but was still chasing every ball, still trying to do his best. But yeah, again, it was quite a hard one because I'm not the biggest fan of either our team's strikers or their current form as well. But that was my thought process. So just a couple of changes with, I think, Tosin, Estevão, and João Pedro coming in.
Okay, thank you. So you've got in one more Chelsea player by the looks of it in this one. So 7 Chelsea and 4 Spurs. I'm interested. I think it's again, to be honest with you, a good team. In terms of your centre-back choice with Tosin Adebayo, who was like, or was anyone at all close to being instead of him? You talk about experience he brings. Be honest, do you think it was a Chelsea defender that would have got in instead of Tosin, rather than maybe like a Spurs and Kevin Danso? Because Spurs have had their injury problems mainly in the centre-back position at the moment anyway, like Chelsea have.
Yeah, I know both our teams have a lot of centre-back injuries. Yeah, I think it would have probably been a Spurs consideration. Had I not picked Tosin, it would have probably been Fofana or Champong, if I'm completely honest. Again, like I said before, I do really like Romero, but it's still that big question mark on whether he's going to be fit for tomorrow. So I couldn't include him in my non-injured 11. Remind me, other than Danso, who else do you have? Is it Dragusin, I think? But he's also injured, isn't he?
He's also, yeah, so really it's only Danso because even Gray's out now. So yeah, it's not looking good for Tottenham.
Not looking good for either team, I think, given off centre-backs form and our injuries as well.
Yeah, exactly that. Okay, no, that's fair enough. Thank you. I mean, I don't think there's anything else to really challenge you on, really. I think that a lot of that is very fair. That's good.
I'm keen as a Chelsea fan. What are your thoughts on Estevão Willian?
I think he's great player, but it's interesting you hear that about your story when you went to Brazil, what they were saying. I mean, from what I've seen, he just looks like that player. You know that it's almost like when you know they're like almost the next big thing without too much, putting too much pressure on him or on his back. But it's just about how you use him, and I think Maresca's very cautious of that. So of course, he comes on a little bit. So when he comes on, it's just something different. He's just a bit more energetic. He's a bit more skillful. You just think that he can drag you back into a game or take the game away from an opponent. I just think in terms of he's got so much individual quality, and it just in moments you just see glimpses, don't you, almost? And I don't know whether it's quite the same, maybe, but Tottenham with Lucas Bergvall, I think, is a player that's really exciting. We've seen in moments, but again, he's used carefully. Like he's not going, he doesn't play any more than once a week, really, unless we've got an injury crisis. And when he comes on, you just see it in moments. Some things you think, okay, with experience, you know how to do that better. But some things you just think, oh, that's class at your age. You just know they've got a bright future. It's how they nurse them. But how big do you think? Throw the question back, Estevão could be without, again, it's horrible to try to put this expectation on him, but hopefully he doesn't in a way see this. But what's he capable of? Of course, you don't need to go down the Neymar route in terms of, as you said, the get caught up with other things, but to be a player like Neymar, I mean, wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's already in the Brazilian national team. He's already scoring for them. So he'll definitely be at the World Cup next summer amongst maybe Neymar, Rafinha, and all these other Brazilian talents. Like you said, I don't want to get too excited because it's still early days. And he has gotten a lot of his minutes in the Champions League. Because I think maybe, like you said, Maresca's maybe a bit careful that the Premier League might be a bit too physical for him as an 18-year-old for the time being. But I'm not going to lie, I haven't been this excited about a Chelsea youngster in a very, very long time. But again, we've had these similar kind of players. We've had like Lucas Piazon, I think a while ago, was meant to be the next Kaká from Brazil and never really lived up to that expectation. We had guys like Gael Kakuta as well, again, who never really lived up to the expectation. So I am quite careful, but I think there's something different about Esteval. I mean, a lot of people thought maybe he'd benefit from a loan this season, but the fact he's straight into the Chelsea team getting minutes is already something really special. We've got a lover and lots of other youngsters out on loan, like Kendry Paez at Strasbourg as well. But the fact that Esteval's out here with the first team getting minutes, I think means that the hierarchy, the manager, the scouts that brought him in to see something special in him for sure.
I mean, I get the impression as an outsider, and let me know your thoughts on this. If you think I'm wrong, please say. But you have a really exciting, like, kind of team for the future. You have a lot of good young players, but maybe you lack experience now. I know you mentioned that with Tosin Adebayo. Do you think almost, I want to say, maybe this is harsh, but maybe they're neglecting the team now, but it looks really bright in the future? Do you have any concerns with it? Because Spurs tend to go about it a similar way, a little bit different this year, but all these exciting young players to come, Bergval, Udogie, Sarr, Luka Vuskovic, but sometimes forget about experience. I mean, we did bring in Paulinho, but before that, experience was a real problem.
100%. I completely agree. I think that's one of my big worries with Chelsea under the kind of blue coat ownership is the lack of experience. I think Thiago Silva was that last player that really kind of was experienced. And then when he left, there was such a void. Like I said, I think Disasi, Tosin are oldest players if you exclude goalkeepers. You see against Sunderland, when you go 1-0 up, you want an experienced player. You want a John Terry, a Thiago Silva, even a Tony Rudiger, someone like this, a bit more experienced who can just kind of see the game out, kind of organize his defense, organize his players, bark commands and orders at the players. But right now, they just don't. No one really seems vocal on the pitch. So that is a bit of a worry. We've got a really good team for the future, but I do want that experienced player that maybe can pass a bit of their knowledge, their wisdom, their ability to those players. And that's why I'm so glad maybe Colwill, Fofana, those guys had a bit of experience playing alongside Silva before he left to go back to Brazil himself.
Okay, thank you very much. Any final comments on your team before we go to mine?
No, I'm kind of keen to see what you did for your number 9 as well, because I know it's kind of there we go. Yeah.
It is. So yeah, let's read through it. And again, it's similar, which is going crazy. I didn't think it would be that case. So clearly chose the guest well. But let's get into my team then. So Vicario in goal. Back line is one difference, I think. James Cucurella, Van der Ven, and how'd you say his name? Ujapapong, how'd you say his name?
Ashampong, I believe
Ashampong,
Yeah.
thank you. It's a complicated name, but it's certainly a top player. Midfield, then I've gone with Paulinho, Casado, Esteval, then an attack of Kudus, Pedro, and Neto. So there's one difference, I think, in the whole team, isn't there? And it is in the centre-back. So, I mean, I'm going to explain it all anyway. My main difference is the players are brought in. So if we start with defence, I mean, that defender of yours, I think is fantastic. 19 years of age, isn't he? I think he's really, really impressive. And for me, I think the choice of centre back, actually, and I like Tosin Adebayo, but I did see his mistake against Sunderland. I think he's good, but maybe not quite as good as he once was. Maybe a year or two too late to sign him. Could be wrong about that. But Kevin Danso, the Spurs, have been very impressed with as a third centre back. And I look at him, and when you look at a player, you go, you're probably not like anything like world class. Like Romero and Van der Ven are another level, but Danso's very consistent, very reliable. I don't think he's made a mistake since Tottenham signed him, and that's pretty impressive because he threw him in to the deep end on loan last season at places like St James's Park, Anfield, and he was the one that really held his own. So, appreciation for that. But in terms of quality, Achapong, I think, has real potential. And if you hear, listen to the way Maresca speaks, I think he knows that. It's just about nursing him. And he seems to, what did he say? Fallen in love with him, did he say about a month ago? I think that's what he said about him.
Something similar, yeah.
Something like that, wasn't it? So there we go. But no, that's why I picked him. I think it was I don't want to say straightforward because it'd be disrespectful to Danso, but I was, in my mind, I knew what I was going to do. Esteval as well, I think it was a no-brainer. I think he's a top player. We have spoke about him. To be honest with you, João Pedro, for me, hasn't really impressed. I think we talk about striker problems, issues, and I just felt like this is a position where I spent quite a long times looking at it, not because there was necessary quality or it was a tough decision, but more that I couldn't really find anyone I wanted to play there. I tried to move cards around. I thought, we're just going to force something here that probably wouldn't work to try and not play a typical number 9. So I did go with João Pedro. So that's my team. Anything to say about Theo? There's only one change from yours.
Yeah, I mean, quickly on Champong, I mean, this guy, before he signed a new contract last summer, so summer 2024, he was wanted by the likes of Liverpool, Real Madrid, PSG. So there were a lot of big clubs wanting his signature to bring him in as their right back, especially when we had Reece James and Malo Gusto ahead of him in the pecking order. So I'm really glad that he's back in the mix now. Maybe not his natural position, but the fact he's playing as a right centre back, given he's usually a natural right back, really shows that he's versatile. I kind of agree with what you said about João Pedro. He hasn't really impressed me. His form's dropped off since September, but I really hope he'll benefit maybe from having Marc Gui potentially playing tomorrow, or even Liam Delap when he's back from the suspension. But as a Spurs fan, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on your strikers? Because you've got Solanke, you've got Colomwani, you've got Richarlison, who can play as a bit of a centre forward, and also maybe Brennan Johnson. Occasionally, you can play in that kind of front three as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. And firstly, I'd say we've probably got 5 players that can comfortably play the striker role in Solanke, Mwani, Richarlison, Matthias Tell, and also people don't talk about him. He's Yogi Tell's, yeah. And also you've got Dane Scarlett, who gets forgotten about because he's young, and all these strikers. So it's difficult. I just feel like it's a case that we've got the depth, but not the quality. And I look at someone like Mwani, and I think he's someone that either is up here, and it's like one of the most successful loans you've seen for a little while. I mean, I'm exaggerating here. Or you get where he just completely falls off a cliff and like scored 1 or 2 goals, and that's it. I just don't think there's any in between with him. I could be wrong about that. But my favourite out of all of them is actually Dominic Solanke. I just don't think the system suited him under Ange, and I think with Frank, a lot of balls go into the box. I think it naturally suits Solanke, but to be honest with you, we haven't really seen the best from him. We've seen him work hard, but he hasn't really scored many goals. He's been involved, but that's it. So we need to see a lot more from him when he's back. Richarlison, I mean, we talked about fellow Brazilian earlier, didn't we? In Esteval. I mean, he just almost isn't Brazilian in the nicest possible way. Just, a Brazilian striker you should be really excited about, but he's hot and cold. And like, if we go back to Tottenham's last game, so I recorded, it was Newcastle just a couple of days ago. I mean, how many chances that guy got? But he either slipped at the last moment, couldn't quite take it, and he works hard. But I just like, it's also Sabutio, he can't control the ball. It just kind of pings off him and bounces off him, which is a real shame. But I like him because he's a hard worker and he always plays for the badge, but can't follow up on that. Tell, I think he's really struggling right now for confidence. Done well against Leeds, hit the bar and scored, but hasn't really taken off from that. I think a lot of it is he doesn't know his best position. He's, of course, left out the Champions League squad. Is he a left winger? Is he a striker? I don't think Frank knows, because I think he originally said that he sees him as a wide player forward, in his words, but he's only really played as a number 9, so he's gone against that. So not happy, mate. I think we have the depth, but not the quality. But what do you make of it as an outsider? Is anyone you think that maybe should be Spurs' starting number 9? Of course, it's going to be rotation game to game.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea fans, we share your kind of like your struggles and the dilemma, because I think since Diego Costa, we've never really had a proper number 9 that we can rely on week in, week out. I like Solanke. I mean, he's a Chelsea Cobham Boy academy player. He came through the ranks at Chelsea before moving to Liverpool, surprisingly. And I remember seeing him, he made his debut for Chelsea. I think it might have been in the Champions League, and I kind of had high hopes for him and expectations. But I think he might have come on under Mourinho when Mourinho wasn't really giving much time or playing time to youngsters. But like you said, I feel he maybe he needs to just have consistent game time, I feel, to really kind of find his stride. Matthias Tell is one that surprised me, because we were linked to him in January, I think 2024. We were about to sign him. It might have been a loan or permanently from Bayern Munich. And I remember it was a couple of months after he scored in the Champions League against United in that kind of crazy 4-3 win for Bayern Munich. But he kind of hit the nail on the head. I think he's struggling to kind of know what his correct position is, and I don't think his confidence will be up there after being left out of the Champions League squad. And then Richarlison, you kind of mentioned it as well, and Colomwani. I think these lone strikers, it's either like a big hit or a big miss, and we, more often than not, it's a miss. We got Falcao on loan, we got Alexander Pato on loan, and these players just haven't really worked out as a number 9. They kind of they're not really given the full confidence of the manager. They're not given the minutes, and more often than not, they're just probably thinking about maybe where their future lies beyond the loan. As well. But I think there's a good player there. There's a really good player there, because I think when he was back at Frankfurt, there was a proper player there, and he almost scored one of the most important goals of football in the in the World Cup final, didn't he? So it could have been a very, very different story had that goal gone in.
Mm.
But yeah, I think like having picked both of us agreed on João Pedro, it says a lot about our striking options.
It certainly does. Yeah, there we go. That is a full team. So before we wrap up, Theo, let's move to Saturday's game then. How do you feel about this from a Chelsea point of view? Are you confident? I mean, results haven't always been that kind to you of late.
I mean, it's never a dull affair when we play Tottenham away, is it? I know we've got
No.
a really good record. I think it's just the 2 defeats, so 1 under when we had Graham Potter in February 2023, if my memory serves me right, and then another one in the League Cup where we lost on penalties, I think. But yeah, the last 2 have been we've won fairly comfortably. But that being said, I think it's more Spurs who shot themselves in the foot in both of those games. This is probably the first time where I've got a bit of feel, a bit of nerves going into this game because, like I said at the start of the recording, Thomas Frank's a proper manager. If we could have had a combined manager between Maresca and Frank, I'd have gone with Frank, actually, just purely for his Premier League experience and what he achieved at Brentford. So yeah, I think I'm definitely a bit nervy, and it's always nervy when you play Tottenham because you hate to lose because you've got bragging rights, and it's always a big game given the rivalry. But this is the first one where I feel like Spurs will be right up for it. A lot of the players that I picked in my combined 11 are players that I fear and almost I want them in my team, like Van de Ven, Polina, and I think they'll be right up for it. Kudos as well tomorrow. So yeah, definitely a bit of nerves, but always a bit of excitement when it's this game because there's going to be goals, it's going to be entertaining. So definitely looking forward to it at the same time.
Do you think I mean, this is cliche, isn't it, in football? We've said a lot, but in terms of how important the first goal is, but maybe more about when it's scored, do you think it's critical more than like who scores it?
A little, yeah. I mean, you look at the last 2 games, the reverse fixtures of the last few seasons. I think Spurs got the first goal, didn't they, quite early on, and then almost allowed Chelsea to just switch on and score again. I'd actually be more worried if Chelsea score first because we seem to really struggle to hold on to leads at the moment. And I think it might be quite a cagey game to start off with, particularly that now that you don't have Ange as your manager, you don't play that high line, which we really took advantage of over the last few seasons. I think the highlights popped up on my Instagram of how easy it was for Mudryk, Jackson, and Raheem Sterling to just literally pass the ball. And next thing you know, they had a 1-on-1 with Vicario. So it will be a very different type of game tomorrow. But yeah, I think the first goal might be quite important. It might set the tone for the game as well.
How exhausting, by the way, was that game under Ange at the end of 2023? So much happened, didn't it? I mean, 2 Spurs players sent off. I mean, 2 players come off injured. It's just absolutely crazy. I mean, what 5 goals? They are. It's just. How long did that game go on for? I'd love to know. It's got to be like one of the longest games.
I
Felt
think there
like
was a
forever.
lot
That
of
was
added
8 times
time.
as well.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
with the red cards and the VAR checks, there'd been a lot of added time. And I was a Chelsea fan, and we won, but I had a headache at the end of that match. It was definitely a lot of drama that unfolded. And even last season's one, 4-3, when I think Son scored a consolation
Yeah.
quite late on, and Palmer got the Panenka. That was full of drama as well, wasn't
That
it?
was full of drama, exactly. But in that one with Ange, that first one, because like that kind of was the start of a bad run in terms of injuries and form. But I think if I remember correctly, Van der Ven and Madison. So yeah, Van der Ven and Madison
Yeah.
come off injured. Romero and the doggy were sent off both for stupid second yellow cards. That both were, by the way. It was just really poor. Then we had a whole penalty check, didn't we? That it wasn't originally. Then it was. Was it inside the box? Then was it red? And so many things were considered. It just, honestly, tiring game. But we'll move on from that. But what have you made of Chelsea so far this season under Maresca? Was it maybe better than you expected, worse than you expected, or similar?
I think he's got all the players now. He's got that. He set the bar quite high after the Club World Cup. Chelsea fans now feel like you've got this team where you spent billions to kind of form it. We're expecting results now. We're expecting silverware. I'm not expecting us to win the league because, like I said, I think there's still a huge gap between us and the likes of City. Yeah, I'll still put Liverpool there and Arsenal. But I still think we should be challenging. We shouldn't do like last season where we drift off come like after Christmas and next thing you know, we're just pushing for top 4. I still think we should be up there come after Christmas. I've just been disappointed with how we've done really well against the bigger teams, like we've done recently against Liverpool and Ajax, but then we just bottle it against the likes of Brighton, likes of Sunderland as well. And I do want to see us just amend this disciplinary record because I can't remember a season where we've had this many red cards. I don't know if it's what we touched on before, the lack of experience, the lack of maturity in the team, or it's just maybe these players maybe not being disciplined properly. I mean, Maresca was fuming with Liam Delap, absolutely fuming when he got sent off midweek against Wolves. But yeah, it's been a bit of an up and down season. I wouldn't say I'm satisfied, but I also wouldn't say I'm dissatisfied. but I also expect us to see more, especially if we've got a relatively easy run of games after Tottenham. We've got Karabakh in the Champions League, then we've got Wolves, and then there's an international break, then we've got Burnley. So I think these are type of games November now where we need to start picking up points. Otherwise, we're just going to fall further behind the pack as well.
100%. I was going to ask you about your disciplinary record. You mentioned it there. I think I'm not going to ask you what you think that is there, because I think you'll be able to agree with that there is. But is it something like that? 7 in 9 games or 8 in 9 games if you include the manager? It's absolutely insane. Do you think it could be down to a lack of maybe experience? And how do you solve something like that? I mean, we're not experts in this in terms of we're not managers, but how can Maresca solve this? Is it a case of bringing in more experience in January? Is it just having these conversations? Because I'm sure you agree that Delap yellow card, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? Really, he's never going to be winning the ball, and you don't need stuff like that.
I think maybe it's just because we have so much depth now in positions, and maybe these players are so eager to impress that sometimes that excitement just translates in them potentially just getting a second yellow. Like Malagusto, we're 3-0 up against Forest and he just gets a silly second yellow. Joao Pedro comes on in the Champions League, gets sent off against Benfica when we're 1-0 up. And then, like you said, Liam Delap against Wolves, I think we were 4th, winning at the time quite comfortably, and he gets a silly second yellow. And we could see it from a mile off. You're not winning that ball and don't have your elbow pointed there. So I think Maresca got to do something on the training ground to kind of maybe punish these players, find them, potentially even not include them in the next match day squad when they are fit, and maybe more prioritize people that are, not don't have these ill-mannered or this hot-headed attitude. But yeah, I would kind of pinpoint it to the lack of maturity in that team and that lack of experience. Because if you had like a Thiago Silva, John Terry, you'd have these people just shaking them up in the dressing room, just being like, you can't do that. You let the team down. Whereas now you have all of these players that are just probably more into their Instagrams and their kind of social media images than their potential, like what they're told by senior players. So yeah, it is what it is. But I really just hope, because I know that when we finish the game with 11 players, like we did against Liverpool, like we did against Ajax, we look good. We do look good. But when we finish the game, we have to defend the lead with 10 men, like against United, like against Brighton. We really struggle. So I've got a bad feeling about tomorrow. One of the two teams will get a red card. And if history repeats itself, it will be Chelsea given the season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it is a London derby. I mean, this game was always, isn't it, had a little bit of bite to it in terms of, a bit of drama, a bit of entertainment, goals, yellow cards, red cards. But yeah, he's got to stamp it out, Maresca, hasn't he? Really, because it's starting to really affect you. Because you look at the table and you think, oh my God, Chelsea, but your performances with 11 men haven't, represented where you are now. But do you think there is? Well, let's say you, God forbid, for your case, lose this game. Do you think there is a little bit of pressure on Maresca? Because of course, like you said, a lot of people look at it and go, you spent £1 billion, under this new ownership. There will be pressure on the manager, rightly or wrongly. How do you sit on Maresca in general? I know you opted to pick Frank, which is interesting, like over the two if you've done a combined team as well. So I'm interested to know your thoughts on Maresca.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to judge a manager on their second season rather than their first season. And I think Maresca did really well in his first season, given everything. He got top 4, which was the goal. He won silverware in the Conference League, and he also won the Club World Cup against some very good opposition along the way, and beating the likes of Fluminense, who are a very difficult team and very solidly defensively, and then PSG in the final, which was the standout performance. But this season, I think, is when I'm really going to look at him and think to myself, is he kind of suited to be Chelsea's manager long term? We've got Champions League football. I think Chelsea fans are expecting him to win a domestic cup, whether that be the League Cup or the FA Cup as well, because we haven't won a domestic cup in, I think, since 2017, if I'm not mistaken, 2018 when we won the FA Cup. So it has been a long time coming. We've gone so close in a lot of finals against Liverpool on penalties, against City in 2019 on penalties as well. So I think that'll be nice to win a domestic cup. But yeah, it's definitely pressure on a manager. I think any manager in the Premier League second season and you're not getting the results, there'll always be pressure. Even more so when you're a Chelsea manager and you've invested billions into forming this team of world-class talent. I do want to give him the benefit of doubt, given the injuries and potentially Palmer maybe not back until mid-November, end of November. But come Christmas, if the results are still poor and we've really fallen behind the pack, maybe there will be alarm bells and a lot of pressure surrounding his name.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. Thank you very much, Theo. I think it's very fair and kind of like level-headed and balanced again. But before we wrap up, what is your score prediction for Saturday, and who do you think, if anyone, is going to score?
I think both teams have had quite similar seasons, like really good results and some really poor results. So I think it's going to be a draw. I know it doesn't really often end in a draw, Chelsea Tottenham, at least not for the last couple of seasons. But I think it's going to be quite an entertaining draw. Goals, I think it'll be 2-2. I think João Pedro's due a goal, so I think he'll pop up with a goal tomorrow. I think Kudos potentially or Kuleveski will score potentially for. I think Kuleveski likes scoring against Chelsea, so one of the two of them will score potentially early on, like the previous fixtures. But yeah, I'll go with 2-2 and maybe Van der Ven. He's in scoring form, so I'll go with Kudos and Van der Ven and João Pedro and Enzo Fernandez for Chelsea.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to go with. Well, I firstly agree with you with the draw, but I'm going to go with 1-1. I think. How do I think this is going to go? I actually think Tottenham will take the lead through Xavi Simons. I think he'll get his first Tottenham goal. I think João Pedro, I agree with your scorer. I think it will score, and I actually think it'll be quite late as well. I think maybe like 78, 79 minutes for Chelsea to equalise. But of course, context is important, Theo. But would you take a draw if I offered it to you now?
I think after everything we discussed on this episode, given the kind of like our inconsistencies, given our injuries, given we potentially might not be playing with a natural 9 tomorrow, I think I would. But then as soon as the game kicks off and given how things kind of plan out, you probably want to push for a win. But yeah, given Friday evening when we're recording this, I think I would take a draw actually.
But that's the thing, is it is context. Like, I was speaking to a Brighton fan when we played them early in the season. Like, yeah, definitely take a draw. But they were 2-0 up, in the second half. I mean, at that point, you just think that's where you won't take a draw in the end. So it's difficult, isn't it? Because like Wolves for Tottenham's a good example. Like, we draw the game 1-1. For me, I still think it's an awful result, but it's like really bad before a ball's kicked. But if you tell people that in the 93rd minute Tottenham were losing 1-0 somehow, then all of a sudden the point's a little bit better. But Theo, I think that wraps up nicely. Have you got any final comments before we do finish?
Yeah, what about yourself? Would you take a draw tomorrow, or are you pushing for a win?
Great question. Do you know what? I will, and I think Spurs fans may slightly disagree with me, because you always have this concept, don't you, with every London club, win your home London derbies, and if you can draw the away ones. But I just think Chelsea are a great side when they've got 11 players. And I think with the players we've got out and how we performed ultimately against Newcastle, it wasn't catastrophic, but it wasn't like great. We're just lacking that creative edge at the moment. We're good defensively, but we're just like not really causing a problem going forward. And I just looked at Chelsea a couple of weeks ago and went, this is going to be tough. Your recent couple of results have given me a tiny bit more confidence. So I think I would take a draw. Yeah. So both
Interesting.
would.
Yeah.
There you go. Might as well be a draw.
There you go. But I appreciate you having me, and definitely looking forward to tomorrow's game.
No worries. You're absolutely welcome. It'd be great to have you on again. But where can people follow you across social media? Talk to people again, a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely, yeah. So I record with my co-host, who's also called Theo, and we do a weekly episode or bi-weekly episode on our From the Shed End account. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram. We post a lot of matchday content, so maybe Tottenham fans or just football fans, if you're interested in kind of viewing a bit of matchday content, head to our Instagram and head to our Twitter, and the link in our bio to find all the links to our Spotify, our YouTube as well. And like I said at the start of the episode, if you're keen to just collaborate, record some episodes together, record some football content together, just drop me a DM. You can find me at Sesky Time or at From the Shed End as well.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much for your time. You've been fantastic. Really do appreciate it. Thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. If you're listening via audio and a podcast platform, don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review. And Theo, I do apologise, but for the viewers' sake, come on, you Spurs.